Well, thank you, Jose, and in Group 6. I think that was a wonderful way to finish off the downloads. So we thought we do now is just kind of move into a period of where we can kind of open up and share what our reactions are to the various downloads. But let me just assure you all that we will assemble all of these presentations, everything together into kind of a final report. We'll try and polish it up best we can. But in large part, you heard that the work is going to continue. And what I hoped for in this event is that, as I mentioned in the beginning, we'd find a way to launch 1,000 ships and people will be willing to captain those ships. And I think what we're hearing here today from all the workshops is people have stepped up and have answered that call. That to me is a great sign the Holy Spirit's at work, because there's fruit emerging from the event. I won't say I have had that privilege to participate in a lot of conferences, but that's always been something. I think many of us have had this experience when we leave the conference. Now what? What's going to happen? What was the point? And I feel very confident in saying, and I look forward to hearing your reactions as well, that this is going to be the start of something I think very important. I just want to note something before we kick things off. I mean, I do think this is a critical issue, and two, the enormity and the criticalness of this work can't be emphasized enough. Now, I think whether we AI and robotics has us, break into a kind of a golden path or a dark path, it's ultimately not going to be because of the technology. It's going to be because of us. How effective we are at evangelization, through, of course, God's grace, and how much we're willing to step up and be courageous and ensure that the message gets out there. And I think that's one of the important takeaways from this event, is that we've had a very, I think, important conversation here. We have to now take that conversation and try and include as many people as we possibly can to keep the conversation going. So I just want to encourage all of you, whatever platforms you have available to you, to please share the fruits of what happened here and try to invite as many people to have the conversation. So with that, maybe I'll just kind of open up. I'm not sure if Father David, you want to offer initial reflection as well.
And when you raise a question, you want to make an intervention, a comment, observation, you raise your hand, and we'll see if we can have a microphone runner at each side of the auditorium.
Sorry, I hate to be first. Father Ricky Manalo, Paulist priest. I enjoyed all the summaries. One thing I'm wondering that's missing, even though it was brought in now and then, was just a theological thread throughout all of these. Yesterday, I was in the education group. I brought in how sacramental imagination might inform AI. Last I heard, sacrament is a major part of Catholicism. I brought that also with the Turing test today. And at the very last 5 minutes of our Turing test group, we began to talk about incarnation and how that might inform what we write, whether that's, when we talk about embodied relationality. But when you think about theological categories, God, sin, redemption, eschatology, all of these various areas, I'm simply wondering whether that could be a seventh group, or how might that be more intentionally interlaced or woven throughout all of these summaries.
To say, I think this is a great group, and I think what's probably one of the outcomes of this is going to be, we're going to need to spin up some more WhatsApp groups. And I think that's a good idea. So I just want to note that if it's identified that there is a specific area that you feel that we need to kind of huddle on, then I think after this forum, I wanted to keep the WhatsApp groups closed to just participants for this iteration. But I think that we can shut down the 2025 groups and spin up ones that are intended to be more broad and open to other individuals, and we can create new ones. And I think that getting conversations started around these areas could be helpful, and that may inform in the future what kind of satellite events we have or what we decide to do next year in Rome.
I think in our group, the Education Workshop 3 group, we were ending with the notion that, well, maybe we should come up with something. There was a bit of a desire to go on with some kind of workshop, create tools, create maybe even documents as guidelines for AI usage. Partly because, as I had said in the meeting, AI isn't done with us yet. So there's going to be something new about an hour and a half after this meeting, then a week later, then 3 months later, and a year later. So to have some way of, I don't know if Brett, we can maybe test that in the group, just send out a query or two and see how we might formulate that. But because it's education, so it's quite a rich field for whether guidelines or governance or moving forward in this issue.
Thank you. I was in group 3, and I just had an afterthought relative to the guidelines and guardrails for the implementation. I think that K through 12 and higher education are 2 different groups, and I don't think that one size fits all. That's just my takeaway. And again, we had a very, very spirited group. It was great, and thank you, Father, and also for Brett for the coordination. Thank you.
Very good. So maybe a small comment to remember that we're part of the Catholic Church, meaning the universal church, right? So 2 things I want to say about that. First of all, fantastic things that were mentioned. Maybe to remember that the Magisterium, the original one, not the app, is whereas bit of a slow burn, that one.
Can I just quickly go on record? It was never meant to be called that. That was the name of an internal research project, and it just became, anyways.
So yeah, I mean, thankfully and like providentially, it's a great consolation that the church, both the hierarchy here in Rome, but also in different elements, different pontifical universities, are working a lot and producing a lot of material that can be helpful if we're talking about social teaching, if we're talking about the various aspects, education a lot. A reflection on our humanity, Antiqua et Nova. So it's always good, I think, to remember what is happening, what is the church saying, that can inform the more hands-on, on-the-ground work that each of you would be doing in different aspects. And the other thing is also the Catholic Church being all around the world. So it was mentioned, maybe we have here a particular concentration of North America, right? And you are, at least, I'm humbled, but also, amazed at the fantastic top levels a lot of you, all of you are working at. The rest of the world exists, and whereas you might be in level 20, level 30, there are other places of the world where they are still at level 0, right? So while thinking of the fantastic ways we can keep on innovating, the preferential option for the poor are, can be interpreted in different ways. So how are different ways we can maybe also have another stream of all the different things that are being done, of offering ways of upskilling or up-leveling, or again, depending on the section, the sector, the area, the branch, right? We can offer to other areas of the church, other dioceses around the world, in different areas, where the expertise here, the concentration of expertise and knowledge and resources that are here can be offered while innovating, but also offering, other areas, other churches, the ability to move forward and keep up the pace, right? And also benefit from the great work that's being done here.
And Father Jim, why don't you, thank you very much for calling that out, because I do want to acknowledge something, that this is a very Western-heavy audience, and I don't think that's obviously I'm very glad you're all here, but we obviously have to find ways to be expand and ensure that we have more diversity. For no other reason, obviously, it will be more likely to be effective if we have a diversity of insights and opinions. So we need your help with this. We need to reach more people, a greater diversity of thinkers and spiritual people, future saints. And so if you're willing to help us with that, introduce us to different places around the world, we're going to try very much to work with the bishops' conferences next time around, specifically to see if they can kind of come up with some kind of nomination process. But I think it'll be incumbent on all of us here to discern what we can do to ensure that we're hearing from everyone here, as we are the Universal Catholic Church.
So my name's John McElligott. I wasn't going to say anything, but I think what you just stated is important, but maybe not in the way that you're thinking about it. So the reason I think we should be bringing people in that aren't just from the West or top of our game in tech is not so they feel included. It's because what we're about to move into is so different. Sometimes our previous success is a prison to understanding the future. And so as things are coming in, we're trying, I think, to cram what's coming into what's worked in the past. And very often it's people that don't have that framework see things that potentially we may not see. Like in tech, it's technological leapfrogging. It's why in certain countries, they embraced blockchain first and Bitcoin. And because of that, they never ran telephone poles, which meant they never had to keep telephone poles going. And so sometimes our past success locks us in. So in my thought, it might be things that none of us would ever be able to see because that success has locked us into a certain thing, that it's not about being inclusive. I think it's about actually seeing some of these gaps that maybe even Silicon Valley isn't seeing. And so I think, that's something that I don't think was done right in the first industrial revolutions. And maybe there's a chance to do it right this time.
Hi, Tom Tancredi here. One thing I think that is a really good advantage and an opportunity for us to collaborate is Americans have a lot more ability to build up evidence for evidence-based research. And so we can collaborate with our European partners. That was an idea that was shared with me. I think it's a great opportunity for collaboration where America basically develops a body of evidence, and then that evidence gets sent over to a European counterpart who's able to actually synthesize it and actually be run by an ethics committee and provide more research and information there. So that's one opportunity, I think, for collaboration, and I think it's not locked into any region. I think it's actually cross-collaboration on that. And I think the one thing that we're doing well beyond Silicon Valley is that we're putting, unlike the other industrial revolutions, we're actually putting the human first in this consideration before, and then rather than trying to figure out how to solve the problem after the people have been heard. So I really encourage everyone thinking in that direction.
Hi there. Hi there. My name is Thomas Pinto. I'm a senior at Ave Maria University. I just want to say thank you, piggybacking off the universal point. Just so many times I feel like in the Catholic Church nowadays, everyone's doing amazing stuff, but they're all on islands. And so this conference is just amazing, bringing everyone together to work towards it together. And I think that's a massive thing for the future of the Catholic Church, especially in this new age, to begin to come together to support. So many times so far in this conference, I've met people that I know are going to be able to help me along the lines with helping stuff come to life. So thank you so much for that. And then also just one main point that I feel like I've gotten from this conference, at the foundation level, at the very least, the importance of digital literacy. At my school, I helped put on this AI month in order to just bring about digital literacy amongst strong Catholics who are graduating, going out into the world, because I feel like there's a natural feeling for Catholics to kind of cloister and not be in the world. And so really allowing people to become Catholics, especially become digitally literate, is such a good foundational thing because it's here. Who do we want to be the minds behind it? And so continuing to encourage that at the very least with artificial intelligence.
They're just amazing perspectives we've been able to share this week. And I wanted to underscore the fact that the AI systems we're building impact many people beyond the builders and operators. And we need to have those diverse, broad perspectives in our dialogues as we go forward. Talking about going forward, as Christians, thinkers, technologists, philosophers, we're really at the leading edge. So we have to commit to continuous and continuing education. Maybe I'm biased because I was in the education work group, number 3, but we all have, that's the table stakes to work in this field. And so maybe with our WhatsApp groups, we can share out some of the resources that we've found very helpful in informing our the work that we do here. So just continuing learning here, just to be able to be relevant and keep up with the incredibly fast pace of change.
I'm Pia De Saloni from the United States, and I just wanted to thank you. I think I feel very privileged and honored to have been part of this, and I think it's a fantastic opportunity of showing how everybody is part of the church, rather than waiting for the magisterium, not the app, the magisterium to issue something, that we're all here working in this space. And so I would just encourage as much as that and more as possible, because every one of us that is baptized is able to live this vocation of being the church in the world. So I just want to thank the leadership here for this opportunity, and also just for leading this initiative. It's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Hi, Chris Treadaway here. Matthew, I want to thank you and your team and our organizers for pulling everybody together. I mean, This is just an incredible group, and I didn't know it existed. So it's good to know there's a lot of thoughtful, smart people working on different things. I just wanted to point out and remind everybody that this is not a thought exercise. Like, we're in this right now. We go to work on Monday, and we need to work the problem, not talk about the problem. So I just want to encourage everybody to think of this as, we're executing, and we can't have, this happen to us. We need to drive it. So thank you.
While the mic is being moved around, if there's any outcomes that have been arrived at that are not in the slides, but you feel that there's a personal story you want to share, something that happened that you to kind of demonstrates that something's moving, something concrete, feel free to share that. I know a few people have come up to me and shared with me some amazing things, so feel free.
Hi, I'm Therese Brown. I'm from the publishing world in Catholic publishing in the United States, and I was in the education group as well. I think one of the things that impressed me most about the different groups' presentations were the common threads. And the two that jumped out to me were, one was about human anthropology, the common thing that we have and hold together, but then also the practical applications for Catholic social teaching. I come from a background of actually having worked for the American bishops, so I'm really used to looking at documents and saying, how does this get applied in a practical level? And one of the things that I would hope, and I think is an incredible opportunity for this group, I think it's rare when you see a group of people like this who are in a professional area who understand so clearly what they mean by these very basic theological concepts and have a way to articulate them so clearly. I would truly hope that one of the things that could come out of this group is some kind of a white paper document of some kind that says, this is how we understand human anthropology. This is how we understand it in this context. This is how we are applying the principles of Catholic social teaching. And each one of them, I was overwhelmed, having been a teacher myself, I was overwhelmed at how articulate the people in our group, and then when I saw on the slides, were at being able to take the principles and apply them very specifically to the area that they were focusing on. That is a skill that most Catholic adults don't have. And I think as a kind of an industry group, to be able to do that on behalf of a professional field and an overlap, a collaborative field, is really powerful. And for those people who are in this work with us, who are not able to articulate it, it can become a very, very helpful tool for them to do their work. And I think it's really beholden on us. We've started that process. Well, let's finish it.
So I'm sure most people in here are familiar with AI 2027, which is that very apocalyptic vision of we could get superintelligence within the next 2 years. So that would mean we have maybe one more conference. And this kind of goes to your point about momentum and making sure that we don't just leave and have the energy evaporate. So I'm actually curious, what do you think between last year's event and this year you did well from a continuity and kind of ongoing engagement standpoint, or what in hindsight was missing so that we keep the good stuff that happened in the interim period and then don't make the same mistakes to follow the Silicon Valley exponential curve, because otherwise we're just kind of running sub to what that pace is going to be, and you're going to just fall further behind.
I think that the big thing was, I think the last forum we did was a little more conventional. I think we had to do it. I mean, we had to do some level setting. A lot of it was around just kind of education, where AI is at, and how do we even start this conversation. What I'm really, one thing, I'm very grateful to Tim Connors, because he's the one who recommended that we spin up WhatsApp groups after the first forum, so that people could connect with each other and keep the conversation going. And I thought, I thought that was a great idea, worth doing, easy peasy. What I have to say, I wasn't exactly sure, given my experience at conferences, what would really happen. And I was kind of shocked. I mean, I was really shocked that throughout the year, the community continued to grow and grow and grow. And there was quite a large core group who was very active. And I'm very grateful, because I really think that what you did is you allowed the momentum to continue. And when it came time to start thinking about who we want to pull into the room this time, the job was made a lot easier, because we could just instantly, communicate with you all. Also, I just found it very personally very interesting. I mean, there was so much signal in that WhatsApp group, so I think that was kind of huge. I got insights and resources were shared. That's one thing that we kind of talked about is like, how do we ensure that we're sharing appropriate resources, people can continue to learn and develop. And I think now that we have these kind of more focused WhatsApp groups, I do want to continue people to use those. I know that there's always the common channel, which we always want to communicate on, which I think is fine. But I think, going in and making sure that we're sharing materials which are relevant to a group which is working in a particular area could be hugely beneficial. So that's what's one important thing. Then the second thing is, I think that this is not one organization trying to figure out how to proceed. Like this is, I think that the collective kind of wisdom that we have here is super important, because there's no organization can launch 1,000 chips and be successful. You can't have a captain of 1,000 chips. That would be insane. But I do think, because everyone here effectively is a leader in one form or the other, that we do have real potential here to launch a bunch of initiatives. I think the hard part will be just making sure that we continue to dial up and kind of map the ecosystem so we know who's working on what, so we can continue to invite more and more people to jump on board that ship and ensure it arrives at its destination. So that's one thing I want to put out to all of you. We'll find ways to make sure that we're communicating with each other, and then let's find ways to make sure that we're continually updating each other on progress. And as we exit here, we'll start thinking about next year. And also, I think if there's a need for satellite, more focused conversations in different parts of the world, if you feel that your institution or you're from part of the world where you feel a particular conversation is very much needed, and you'd like to engage us on a conversation on how we could support that, then I think we should do that. Because again, if we're going to be successful, captaining the ships is one thing, but I think we have to make sure that we have these ships crewed, right? And effectively we have them at capacity, and that's going to require figuring out ways to bring the message forward in a human way. Because I think that we can always use leveraged platforms, but what was unique about this gathering it was interpersonal, it was human. So it's not enough to expand and add more people to WhatsApp groups and channels. I think we have to go beyond that. We do have to continue to try and make sure to bring people together and have that kind of personal connection.
Has anyone mapped the different efforts? Companies?
No.
Okay.
No.
That'd be a good starting point.
No, not yet. I mean, and I think that exercise is going to be pretty interesting. And Tim, again, came to me and recommended that we send out the contact list, that we include 2 extra fields there. One of which is, what are you kind of passionate about doing? And Tim, the other one, I have it written down. How are you being a force for good, and how can the community help you? And I think putting filling in those 2 little fields will be exceptionally useful. If no other reason, everybody can see that, and then that's an invitation for others to hopefully, if they share the same passion to work together. If no other reason, they may think of some idea on how they can support them.
So, Matt Meeks, I was in stand so you can see me. I was in the robotics group, which was, as communicated up there, an absolutely lovely and phenomenal conversation among the members of the group. We did actually talk about robotics a bit, and it was fascinating to learn, because that's not my background. There are robots now that go under the sea and are integrated with CRISPR technologies that can track fish movement to help fisheries get fish. There was a principle in robotics that I learned about, that it's very easy to teach a machine to do complex computational things like play chess, but very hard to teach a machine to move around spatially like a 3-year-old. But that has now changed. So within the past couple of years, the machines are now teaching themselves to move around spatially very well. And they're advancing very quickly. And one of the things that we talked about that became very apparent to me is the tidal wave that is coming that we are not prepared for at all. And so there was some doom and gloom conversation a little bit. There was also a lot of hope. I think we all came to the realization, leaning in on the hope side, that Christ is king, and that we are stewards of his kingdom, and in that we have a real authority. And so the thing I would just like to say is what's happening here is really wonderful, because I think the moral framework and the way for us to understand how to move forward will come from the church, and then it will be disseminated out to all of us to figure out how to apply it. But the other piece that is needed for us to address this tidal wave that's coming and to move it forward according to God's plan is prayer. So the one thing I would ask is if there could be some sort of a unified prayer for the work that we're doing that could be disseminated through the WhatsApp group so that we could all be praying the same thing together. And if we have that, I think the combination of all of our efforts in different places in the world, the conversations that are continuing to happen, the shared knowledge and prayer, then we're going to be just fine. And actually, we're going to do great things for the world. So that would be my request.
Hi, Eugenio here. Some of our colleagues says that, like, I didn't know this existed. Well, this is evolving. So last year we were like 70 people in a smaller room, and now we are 3 times that quantity. So in the end, I wanted to share, like, I've seen the evolving of this group since kind of the beginning, and let's take this as a horizontal group in terms of, like, nobody will come and allow you to drive any initiative. If you think something should be done, just take the lead and gather with people you could meet in the forum, or meet the people you couldn't meet. Take a virtual coffee once in a while with people you haven't met yet. And yeah, I think that's the way that initiatives could flourish in some point, not like just wait for Matthew to communicate that an initiative is happening and that you are allowed to do anything. So I think that's the best way to work. And probably next year it's double or triple of us, so we will lose capability for following up everything. It's like driving 1,000 ships. But this is a good place to have a segmentation of people that are interested in making things happen through Catholic Church and for the world. So yeah, that's my humble vision about how to work from now onwards. And the second thing is that I would like, this is a thing that I would like to work with you, is more to remember that Catholic Church needs us, like parishes, the global operations of church from the Vatican really need some of our talent to comply with the mission of the church, right? So when you communicate with authorities in church, when you communicate with bishops, they are still needing a lot of workforce and tools and things to make the mission of church growth from the church side. So yeah, if you can have that in your mind and offer your skill, your company, your workforce, anything you have, bring it that near to church. I think that's very valuable. And think that this forum could be very valuable for church as well. So yeah, just wanted to have that in mind. Thank you.
I saw somebody over there before Father Ricky. Okay, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Okay. Fernanda Psijas from Franciscan University of Steubenville. I want to thank everyone who made this possible and everyone who is here, who's taking time from whatever else they were doing. One thing that I'm really grateful for is the name, for starters, because it's not the AI Builders Forum, but the very much Human Builders Forum, and the emphasis on the human element and the dignity of the human person. And the human creativity in all of our conversations has really shined through in the summaries. And now I will say, if I could contribute one idea for maybe the future, is that this concept of creativity is often in the making of new connections. And we've done that with phenomenally interesting and accomplished people in all of these areas. The interaction between people who are focused on different workshops would be a phenomenal addition to something like this, in that maybe there are pieces of launching different ships that the different captains have and the different members of the different crews have already. So some interaction between the workshops in the middle of the conversation would be an excellent addition to that. And the second point, I was just going to make an observation that I have well, I experienced myself in some of the interactions with different people, but I also heard little tidbits of conversations here and there along the lines of just how much it has felt like we made a serious effort to allow the Holy Spirit to guide the conversation. I mean, we're all human and we probably erred in a number of ways in that attempt, but just even from the setting up the stage, from the opening mass to our interactions and the way that people have approached these discussions. I was in group 3, but I've heard that in other groups it's been the same. The conversation would get into the weeds about something, and someone at some point would bring it back to a relationship with our Lord, to how the Holy Spirit is guiding this, to bringing it back to the human element and how we are evangelizing the world. It was a phenomenal experience, and praise God for whatever good has been accomplished through this and through us, and thank you for everyone who's made it possible.
Matthew, I was just wondering, when I'm thinking about moving forward from a practical process methodology, I wonder whether there might be another platform besides WhatsApp to continue the conversation personally. And this is just speaking from my experience. I've been part of the WhatsApp since last year. I found it very linear and restricting sometimes when some of my colleagues offered great resources. And if it was 3 months ago, I had to scroll all the way back, or I couldn't really have a conversational contact. I don't know if that's the end goal. I just wonder whether there might be another platform besides a linear listing of resources or comments where we could be more interactive.
There are definitely other platforms. I am totally open and encourage those, if people have platform recommendations, to recommend them. And I encourage people to go and to try them. WhatsApp was arrived at because it's just, the biggest platform, and everyone kind of already has it installed in their phones, and it's kind of easy, right? I don't think it's the best at all. But again, people have to opt to use it. So if we have alternative platform, like I said, this is not a centralized organization, so I'm not going to impose one platform on everyone else. But I think if there are different platforms, I think it's that people should just make sure that everyone have the option to use them. And I think that works as long as we can find a way to kind of dial up. So that's my only concern, is if there's conversations having multiple platforms, not everyone's on that, how do we make sure that we're dialing up? And if WhatsApp, maybe that's the dial-up platform for the time being, that could work. But I right now, I don't have a more elegant solution than that. Not one that I think I can effectively do.
So I'm Dilly Simoni, CEO of Align. So I have to confess, Matthew, you and I connected last year, and I joined the WhatsApp group. And for a while, I was very ambivalent in coming, because I've seen so many other meetings where there's so much gloom and gloom, right? Because people, I think, are ignorant, right? They don't understand the value of AI, possibilities, its limitations. And so if you're in fear, obviously you're gonna think AI and Terminator, right? And then the images of dystopia, whatever. Right? But I started reading WhatsApp comments, right? And the papers that were showing up in the comments, I got full of hope. I'm here, and all I've met are gems. All of you guys are gems. I wish I had time to shake everybody's hand and meet you personally. I think I could learn so much from every single one of you. So in moving forward, how do we continue the discussion? Not linearly, but I just propose we could have monthly sync-ups with our workshop group. Right? Maybe we could have quarterly sync-ups with the other groups. We have momentum. We have gained something in these 2 days, which is magical. We need to proceed and push it forward. So thank you for doing this. I feel blessed for being here. Thank you.
Father John D'Orazio, and it's unfortunate that we can't participate in more than one workshop, because the robotics would have been a very interesting area too. And a suggestion, if anyone wants to take it up, I know that the robotics and AI is probably talking more from an anthropological point of view, how robotics is going to evolve with AI, like imitating humans. But a very practical solution, which would be useful for the Vatican basilicas, is a robot that can collect and place chairs. They would be so grateful. That's and replace candles too, maybe, yeah. Other than that, a question was asked if anyone is collecting information about projects that are already out there. And we've started doing that on our GitHub repository, which was mentioned this morning. We've opened up the GitHub organization Catholic OS. We've run a couple of hackathons. We're running another one Saturday. And in this organization, I also created a repository, Awesome Catholic. Awesome is a way of curating lists, awesome style lists, where you can start collecting and categorizing things that are out there. And I've started scouring GitHub to find other Catholic projects that are out there. Another list that I would like to open on this organization, our repository, is about Catholic guilds that are out there. I know about 3 or 4 St. Isidore guilds. I'm sure many of you might know a little bit more. If you have like a guild in your area, let us know. We'll put it into the repository. We'll start creating this network.
Hey, I'm John Johnson, and very grateful to be here the second year in a row. I want to thank you, Matthew. I don't know how you do this and how you have time to do this. It's Herculean, and it's been so beautiful and edifying to meet so many people. And that's definitely the highlight for me, is getting to know awesome humans. But, it's just a continuation, I guess. I think as I meet everybody, part of me, in a certain spirit of fear, I have to admit, says to myself, yeah, we're totally cooked. We're totally cooked. But at least these people in this room will bring some consolation standing next to me on the technocratic gallows. But then I find myself say, well, I found Father Michael's mass, a votive mass to the Holy Spirit to begin this conference, is supremely encouraging. And I started imagining what we would look like fully animated, doing what we do best, which is not so much talking about defensive strategies, catching up, getting with the times, not so much talking about guardrails, but maybe off-ramps to something that is by an order of magnitude greater and better. In some, I think, proposing the gospel in a way that right now the world is so thirsty for, when we feel in our bones and know in our bones that every tech company that invented this technology and is propagating it vigorously right now has the same exact product, and that's you, and that's me. And I feel this great void that the church, that we, the church, even is called to stand up and very aggressively, even triumphantly pronounce, and that is the human alternative, the transcendent alternative to the commodification of the human person. And as technologists and builders, really the fundamental question is, how do we promote and generate technology that's authentically technological, that is at the service of the human person, a tool that doesn't reduce the human to that object that's fit for use and then deletion. And I think we all want to do that, but we're a little bit afraid to do it. And some of us are kind of waiting for authority on high to tell us how to do that. And I think I am too, right? Like, I can't wait to read what Pope Leo says. But I want to, I think, encourage us that we are actually called to be offensive and proclaiming the gospel in a way that actually gives hope to a world that's so very starving for it right now, in a way that we haven't so deeply starved for it in a very long time. But thank you, Matthew.
I just want to note as well, like I think the conversation around telos is so important. You know, the telos of human beings, of man, of the telos of civilization. And I really do hope that the Pope, as an Augustinian, reflects on that, because I do think that's one of the biggest problems that we have. I said before, if you know where you're going, it's you're more likely to get there. And I think that's one of the problems, right? Was we have to provide a viable alternative, a brighter future. In tangible terms, we have to show people how walking the Christian path and living as a Christian ultimately will make you happy and more fulfilled and is better than the alternative. And I think that's going to be exceptionally hard when the world is selling. Basically, we have this existential crisis, so people aren't necessarily working. They have time on their hands. The world's offering them all kinds of opportunities to chase dopamine hits, all kinds of distractions. We talk about virtual girlfriends and everything else, and I think there is a real risk that the tragedy of Megan Garcia's son is something that we could start seeing at scale. And so I think we have to be mindful when we leave here every day that there's a lot of people who are going to be experiencing hell on earth. And there's an opportunity for us to, if we're focused and we're really convicted, to participate with God in delivering them from that. And I think that there's going to be really important moments in the future, and I think we have to be prepared. And I'm not going to call him out, but there's someone here who's participating in Passion of the Christ 2. I'm not sure the actual Mel Gibson's new Passion of the Christ movie is coming out at some point. Probably will be the biggest movie of all time. And when people are sitting in that theater and they have that moving experience, wow, there's something here. I want to take the next step. We really have to be intentionally think about how do we ensure that those people are connected to truth, the beauty, and the goodness. Sometimes maybe a technological platform can be a means to start that journey, but that's not the end. Ultimately, you have to remember the telos. We want people, technology is a means. We want them to arrive at good human relationships with one another, with God. They can find good communities, good parishes, good spiritual lives. So I think that thinking about that pipelining, right? How do we take someone who's having that experience watching that film and ensuring that they make it into a parish where they're going to be nurtured and cared for is critically important. And that does involve ensuring that we have a kind of a larger kind of understanding of what we're trying to do here. The individual workshops are all supposed to be heading, paddling towards, the very, very similar destination. And so I think at a more macro level, we'll try our best to ensure that we keep that in mind.
I think to build off the idea of telos, I came here to learn more about alignment in AI and what that means from a Catholic perspective. And as a pragmatic next step, I've been thinking about foundational models and how they align to, a very vast general worldview, and they try to get every single one of it. And I think it would be prudent of us to potentially make a Catholic benchmark that's public that says, hey, from 3.5 to 4.0, this model increased in the understanding of Catholicism, both in facts and some ontologies as well. And maybe this is something for Catholic OS tomorrow, of which I'll be a part of, but I'd love to see something like that just to know if even the models are headed in a direction that speaks to the faith if prompted in a way that would be more prudent.
Hi, hello. Nisha Granham from the Catholic Bishops' Conference in England and Wales. Thank you so much for an excellent conference. I would like there to be more focus maybe in future on AI and relationships. It seems to me somewhat clear that the major pastoral issue facing the church is around people developing parasocial relations with AI, whether as therapist, friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, substituting real-life human relationships with increasingly convincing simulacra through AI relations. And this is going to feature through some of our discussions subliminally, but I think it would be good to tackle this more head-on, because I think ultimately the church is, as it says in the compendium, an expert in the human condition, including in human relationality. And that is a competitive advantage that we have. And it's also a key pastoral concern. So I think it would be good for that to be kind of more directly targeted, because I think it's at the heart of a lot of what we're discussing, but kind of a bit part where it should be more central.
I've long found it ironic that when generative AI kind of leapt onto the scene with the transformer architecture, that the title of that paper was "All You Need Is Attention," and it came at a time when, big tech is trying to steal our attention, right, and take away kind of our focus on the good, the true, and the beautiful. And on the one hand, while I've been here, I've noticed just a laser focus on what we need to do as Catholics, even if we're still, grasping and trying to figure that out. So I'm grateful for that. But also, I think what comes to my mind is that need that we do need to focus on having good attention to one another, attention as a church, of course, to what's happening in the world. But as I've heard in so many conversations here, also attention to what is really important, you know, our relationship with the Lord, our witness to him. And just to kind of, you know, emphasize what many others have said, I think really the beauty we can offer is not like re-leveraging, you know, technologies that other people are also doing well, but to share what they don't even have, right? A relationship with our Lord. Thank you.
So I'm Maureen Kondik, and I just wanted to emphasize the last 2 points on relationality. I think as Catholics, we know that our authentic relationships are grounded in Christ and grounded in our interactions with other humans. But Catholics are a minority of the world population. This came up in our workshop multiple times. And some of the worst potential evils of AI center on false relationships, on people who actually believe, not because they've been deluded by AI, but who believe that AI is a person and that they can have a relationship with that entity. And this is not just individuals, but potentially governments. We can foresee people giving AI rights, legal rights. We can foresee the way many people advocate giving legal rights to companion animals because they're kind of persons. So I think a focus I would like to see that I think feeds off of the last 2 comments would be a greater focus on evangelization, on how do we as Catholics, without being preachy, without couching it in explicitly theological terms, how do we bring our understanding of relationship to a world that doesn't necessarily understand or even have ever encountered this understanding?
Just want to note on that, Alessandro De Santo from Hallow wasn't able to be here because he just had his wife had a baby. I was going to say he had a baby, but this is a big problem for platforms like Magisterium AI and Hallow. We call it the off-ramping problem. It's been mentioned a couple times here. Is we recognize our platforms are not ends in themselves, and we need to off-ramp people. We need to help nudge them and encourage them to take the next steps in their journey. But it's a hard problem. Where do we send them? The classic answer is, you send them to the parishes, but that doesn't always work. Doesn't always work well. One reason because people today, especially younger generations, are not very comfortable just kind of walking in and having a conversation with people, right? Or being embarrassed because they don't know what they're doing. This like pipelining issue of how do we nurture someone? Maybe they come to Magisterium or Hallow and they're intellectually converted, right? So the truth of the faith, that's one of the easier. We're getting better at that. But there's the beauty, there's the love, there's the relationality. These are much harder problems. And I think we have to spend a lot more time thinking about how do we move people off platforms like Hallow and Magisterium and then create some kind of middleware that we can ensure that eventually they find the community and eventually, a parish. And I think I'm glad you brought up evangelization because I think that's critical to it. A lot of the problems that we're talking about just assume that we're going to, at least in part, fail at this. The right human intellectual and spiritual formation won't be there. And so a lot of people are going to be, going off the rails, so to speak, but there's something that we can do about that. And that's why I think we have to look for opportunities when people have a kind of an increased openness to the message. And I think films and popular media are one way, but then we also have to make sure that we actually are building the right scaffolding so we can accommodate these people, these inquirers. I'm actually quite nervous that when this Passion of the Christ 2 comes out, there'll be so many people who want to start that journey that we just won't be able to accommodate them. In fact, we don't have enough priests. God willing, that's going to change. We don't have enough trained catechists. Our parishes aren't always ready and willing to welcome people. And these are all problems. And I think each of these problems requires focused attention and action. So I want to encourage the community. If you have ideas about how to handle that off-ramping problem, how to build that middleware, I think this is the right community to start those conversations.
Hi, Matthew. I'm Greg Milbank. Matthew, last year, one of the goals that we came away with and the focus of the manifesto was the preservation of the human person. I don't know that it's the responsibility of this body, but where do we turn to get that machine processable model of what the church wants to represent in that framework as a human person? I know it's a big question because it becomes the human person in medicine, the human person in social justice. There's a lot of applications to that
It's, I'm just going to quote John Paul II, and it's not a trite statement, but I think it's a true statement. In Familiaris Consortium, he said, you know, the future of humanity passes by way of the family. And that is, I think, the basic understanding that in creation, this experience of love between man and a woman creates the context and the socialization of what we know to be the family. And that socialization in the development of the human person is essential. We allow that to be supported through schools, through universities, through hospice, through hospitals. There's been an intuitive understanding on the part of the church's mission that, yes, society and the family are essential, but we also have these other missions, these other apostolates that support the dignity of the human person. I think everyone has focused on what is the essential, which is, you know, the dignity of the human person, that dignity that is respected in society through a common good, and values that reflect that. I think the evangelization that's been talked about is happening here. I would say that I've really been edified by the sense of what I would call responsibility, an intuitive sense of love for the next generation and for people who are going to be affected by AI. People have been able to suspend some of their own ego. Very professional, very talented people who are trying to work together to try and provide responses to what they consider to be potential harms to the human person. At the same time, technology can facilitate, can allow us to see the flourishing of that human person, and we've also seen that hope being expressed in various ways as well. I would just say I truly believe that it is in that context of the experience of the family, helping parents begin this process of allowing their children to understand that it is not a person, it's a tool, and it can only do so much, and it won't love you, and it won't necessarily tell you what is right and wrong. That's something that is God-given and that is developed through the nurturing process of human development and the formation of conscience and the person. So we do have that story, and I know that people are challenged to sort of say, you know, there are barriers to this evangelization, this good news, the teaching of the church. But we have to be persevering, we have to be patient, and know that people are committed to making sure that that truth and that evangelization is taught and is hopefully received. So it's not an answer, it's just a reflection.
There were some of us that attended a metaphysics conference in the first few days of this week, and it was interesting to see just the things that were discussed there with regard to the misnomer of artificial intelligence and what is the definition of intelligence. And I was speaking more specifically to what it is, I think, that we would have the opportunity to define to the world of what our definition is of the human person versus purely for the purpose of robotics, purely for the purpose of genetics, because it would incorporate morality, ethics, the supernatural, et cetera.
Just to say, I think that, just to mention the transhumanist thing, I think this is a real challenge, right? I mean, the people that are the most powerful people that are driving the development of artificial technology, not all of them, but most of them have strong transhumanist leanings. And I think we've talked about this before. This is a big problem for us, and we have to, I think, as Catholics, find a way to ensure that. the kind of Catholic anthropology, our understanding of the human person, is made clear to people, and why doing it the old-fashioned way, doing it the hard way, is ultimately going to be more rewarding than the way that the transhumanists think it should be done. And this is a real threat, and I think there's a real possibility, because some of the tech leaders who are, I think, are complicated people, good people, and they have in mind good goals, such as colonizing Mars, that they will use that good goal to justify changing the definition of what constitutes a human being in order to serve that end. And we have to be able to respond to that and say that that may be a good goal, but it's just not worth it. And then we have to sell people on that. And I think that's one of the real challenges here, is we have to learn how to effectively sell that. Part of that involves putting together the right words. Part of that just involves living it and showing it to people. I often joke about like the Leave It to Beaver. I think we forget how important those archetypes of what a healthy nuclear family look like. There's a generation that grew up without that archetype. And so we have to then kind of like rediscover that and then sell it. So I think that's something that we should think about. And I think that's why I'm so glad that we had the media workshop, is I think packaging that message and making it enticing, even though it's hard, is going to be so critical if we're going to be successful.
Yeah, Andrew DeBerry, and I want to build directly on that I think there's an opportunity for us to engage the secular powers that are shaping AI more than we might be right now. So if it's the next forum or in some of your follow-up videos, if there's ways to invite some of those individuals, like in some kind of panel discussion or some kind of dialogue, be it Vice President Vance or even Peter Thiel, just these secular forces, that if we can influence that, reshape the narrative, put out into the public some of the underlying values that will call to a lot of people beyond what they've heard today. I think there's some opportunity for us to influence those secular stakeholders. And then a couple of thank yous. One, I'm just really grateful for the ordained individuals that are here and for the progress that really the organized church has made. So Antigua et Nova had come out in the last year, and there are efforts by some of the different conferences. And I'm so grateful for the Canadian bishops being here. And I would love to understand a little bit more what might be happening within the Vatican. I don't think within the Vatican they know what's happening among themselves for AI. We've got Minerva dialogues, we have this forum, we have individuals, and it'd be helpful to get a sense of what's happening and how we can influence things. So just thank you for the individuals who are ordained, who are here. And then lastly, another thank you in that I feel like this is definitely an historic moment in our faith, in our countries, in our businesses. And it feels like an underlying mantra from Cent Ventures, which is originally how I got introduced to this group last year through John Cannon, is the Holy Spirit continues to invite us to spiritual renewal to address the human and physical needs of today. And we're seeing a groundswell of ecosystems that are more receptive to the faith, to the church. We're seeing it in different industries and healthcare. If we could have another industry vertical, maybe one in finance. I'm with Araminthia Investing, and we see so much opportunity for shifting the Catholic voice in finance. And so I'm just grateful for the motions that this is unlocking.